And we are going live. We are live. Welcome to Sunday's edition of the Final Boss Podcast. I am your host, Turbo the CEO, and my guest host tonight, Big Mike. Y'all familiar with him? For those that didn't get it, we're going to get into it. Tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about protecting your children from hackers and bad actors. And I'm gonna let Mike go ahead and lead the way, and we're gonna get right into it because this is a lot of information. I need you to be taking note and listen. Let's go.
So this is a really important subject, very important subject out there. Is to, how do you protect your children? Because who is protecting your children? And when you hear these horror stories of these kids and the things that are out there that are happening to the kids nowadays is just it's terrible bad. So this is a multi-part. This is not a simple little do this, do that. The first step is always identifying what are the threats. You have to know what the threats are before you can deal with them. So this series, this particular session is just about identifying the threats, just knowing what they are. Once you know what the threats are, then we can start talking about the next one about taking steps how to protect each and individual threat. Because if you don't protect your children out there in the world, in the cyber world, nobody will. And that's some scary, scary stuff going on. And you're constantly hearing these stories in the news media about this young generation coming up that these kids are committing suicide in their teens, and it's a bad thing, and it's becoming almost an epidemic. It's become so prevalent, and your kids are being subjected to things that we didn't growing up, because I'm RFO. I'm old. I'm really old. So the thing is that we didn't have internet when I was growing up. So we dealt with things out in the schoolyard with these. That's what we did, and that's the way it worked. And but that doesn't happen to so much anymore nowadays. It's a whole different world. I
Absolutely.
mean, you look at somebody sideways and you get criminally charged. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of the threats to at least have an idea about what we're up against, and then
Well,
we can
look,
elaborate. Go ahead.
before we go into some of the threats, let me ask you a question because this is going to lead into the information that you're ready to go out with, or come up with. My question for tonight: what are the most prevalent online threats that children face today, and how can parents identify and address these risks in a proactive manner? That's my question.
Absolutely. An amazing question because, just like we talk about protecting yourself out in the world, you're an adult, you've got a lot going on as far as to see things and know how to protect yourself, especially when we give you the right tools. But with your kids, it's a whole different ball game. So let's talk about the number one threat out in the world. The biggest threat we have in our kids coming up is cyberbullying. Now, we all know what bullies are. Someone who picks on you and pushes you around and shoves your head into the wall locker and things like that. That's a bully. So a cyberbully is doing it in a digital world. And your kids nowadays, this generation's coming up, they call the kids linkers because they're linked to technology from birth.
Hmm.
You got kids at 2 years old with a cell phone in their hand.
Wow.
You got kids that are, 5, 6 years old, been using cell phones their whole life. And if you take away their cell phone, it's like taking away the crack pipe from a crack addict. I mean, they just literally have meltdowns if you take away their technology because it is like an addiction. When it becomes so much a part of their life, it's an addiction.
True.
Um, Workplace is having a problem nowadays with the young folks they hire. They can't get the phones out of their hand just to have a job.
True.
They got the phone in their hand the whole time. They just
Yep.
can't be away from it. It's just
Hmm.
crazy. And at a later time, we can talk about what occurs with attention span and ADHD and all those things that occur. And I have a strong belief that they'll have a lot to do with technology. We have
Absolutely.
instant gratification is the key.
Hmm.
Everybody's all about instant gratification on their devices, looking for the likes, looking for the clicks. So, when you get hung on instant gratification, it's a whole nother subject, and we'll get into that another time. But let's talk about the number one, the cyberbullying. And we'll get back on topic because it's such a broad. It's a big animal. We're going to slay a big elephant here, but you can't do it all at once. You got a little bit of time. So, cyberbullying. This is when the use of digital platforms to harass, threaten, humiliate a child. And humiliation is a big one. It can occur on social media, Facebook,
Hmm.
Instagram,
Yep.
messaging apps. These
Hmm.
kids are out there using every kind of messaging app you can imagine.
Yep.
And they're being slick. What they do is the bullies will erase, they make their messages disappear. So you can make it so that if you're in WhatsApp or in Facebook, you can make your messages disappear after someone sees them. Snapchat, messages only
Gaming
stay for a little
platforms.
bit.
Yeah.
Many platforms. Okay.
Yep. Hmm.
These kids are on all of them. And so a cyberbully comes in there, bullies your kid, and then the message disappears. So they are able to get away with it because there's no evidence, right? And so they can go on and on and on and on and start threatening your child.
Hmm.
And your kid says, I'm being threatened, and you have no way to know because, well, show me the proof. There is none.
Right. It's
So
gone.
then your kids really just lose hope at that point. They
Hmm.
get hopeless. Gaming platforms on
Gaming.
Xbox,
Hmm.
on your PS5s,
Yeah.
on these devices, there's chat rooms that these kids are in where they're playing a game. And there's a lot of social interaction that goes on in those chat rooms. And a lot of
Absolutely.
bullying can happen there too.
It does. It
And
happens.
and in text messages, okay?
Mhm.
Now, the preferred method of madness with these kids is not going to be text messages because those you can have copies of. And the cyber bullies are smart enough to know use a platform where you don't have evidence. They're going to hide their tracks. They'll bully, but when the process of them bullying, they're going to hide their tracks right away. So because they're going to be savvy, they're going to be smart about using technology to their benefit to get this done.
Yeah.
And you say, well, what's the impact? What's the impact of just cyberbullying? You go, well, when your children are young, growing up, they're emotionally vulnerable. They have hormones that start to kick in when they become teens, and so they're very vulnerable at that point. And so what occurs is
Impressionable.
it
Yeah.
creates emotional distress,
Yep.
anxiety. Kids won't even go out in public because they're so anxious, depression,
Hmm.
and then suicide.
Yeah.
These kids are getting bullied so bad
Yep.
that they just can't deal with it anymore. They think they're alone. They think they're the only one, and they end up committing suicide.
Sad.
And this is happening so much that it's pretty much almost epidemic.
It's
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 that
a
bad.
it's definitely an
It
epidemic.
is.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the problem is who's doing anything about it?
Mm.
You hear a lot of lip service, but you don't see that anybody's doing anything about it. And the place, and we're going to cover this, the place you can deal with these things, you can deal with it at home. You can there's a lot of things, and I'm going to give you a lot of tools that you can use to help in this endeavor. Okay?
Hmm.
A lot of tools. So we're going to talk about that. So the first step, identify the problem.
Identify the
Once you
problem.
identify the problem, then
Hmm.
we can go after how to solve it. The second thing we talk about is online predators. Now, online predators don't care about gender.
Right.
Male child, female child, they don't care.
Right.
Okay.
Hmm.
They pose as peers, they pose as someone of the same age. They know enough about where the kid goes to school because of social media, and they act like they're from the same school. They
Yeah.
act like there's some other kid from the school.
Yep.
They can
Oh, it's not
peer
just the kid, the parents, the stickers, the vehicles, all those
look at
things.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
when we start talking about how to make a smaller footprint, we're going to talk about the stickers on the cars. This says, I'm a proud parent of a child from this school. All
Hmm.
those lovely things. We're going to go in good depth about that mess when we start talking about reducing your footprint, because you have
Right.
to reduce your footprint to mitigate. That's one of the things we do to mitigate this risk is,
Hmm.
you know, don't be out there making a big splash in the water. The alligators are going to come and get you,
They sure
right?
will.
You
Yep.
might want to swim a little softer, right?
Hmm.
So the trusted individuals, these predators, they pose as peers and trusted individuals to exploit the children. They may use grooming tactics to build trust and manipulate the kids into sharing personal information, into sharing photographs, into meeting them in person. Okay. And this happens all the time. Now, what's the impact of all that mess? Okay. You say, well, what can become of that? Dangerous situations, kidnapping, exploitation, abuse. I mean, it's on and on and on. And it can
Oh
get
man.
really dark really fast. If you just
Yeah.
want
Sex trade.
to,
Yeah. It's dark.
movies have been made about this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. About
Mm-hmm.
children being exploited, and how much it happens. And you don't think it can happen until it happens.
Right.
And then it's too late. And then you look back and go, what were the signs? Why didn't I see the signs? What we're going to try and do is teach you to look for the signs, look for the red flags, look for those behaviors, look for those things that identify a problem, cut those off before they become a problem,
Right.
and make it so that you actually are proactive, because we want to
Mhm.
be proactive in protecting our kids.
Absolutely.
Another thing that ends up happening is inappropriate content.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is whether it's intentional or not. Kids by mistake out there, it's not age appropriate. You say, well, what's not age appropriate? Well, what's the biggest industry on the internet? It's porn. So your kids are accidentally exposed to porn. They shouldn't be seeing that stuff. I'm sorry, they just shouldn't.
Yeah.
It's not normal for young children or children to be seeing that mess, because the damage that it does is crazy,
Catastrophic.
catastrophic.
Yep.
Violence.
Mm-hmm.
If you see too much violence, you're desensitized to violence.
Oh man.
Violence doesn't mean anything to you anymore because you've seen it enough. It's like common. You think it's normal.
Hmm. The
Um,
video games. Age
well,
appropriate video games. Oh
not
man.
just the video games. You can go out there in a blink of an eye and you can
Oh
watch drone
yeah.
strikes
Yeah. Yeah.
live.
True. 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 Very true.
And so these kids are out there watching this stuff. Back in
Mhm.
the day, we had what we thought was crazy was the movie called Face to Death.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, that was absolute shock. That was like, to even watch it was shocking.
Right.
And nowadays, that's considered mild. It's just considered mild because with the age of the internet, all this information's out there. All this stuff's
Mm-hmm.
there, readily available.
Everything's out there.
And if your child's not protected, then they're getting exposed to this stuff. And that's definitely not good for their mental health, especially when they're developing. You want your child to have love in their heart, not totally disconcerned and don't care about anything.
Mm-hmm.
So then you look the next one, because we're gonna keep trucking here. Phishing and scams. And you say, well, what's phishing? A phishing attempt is where they're trying to get you to give up your information. Once you give up your information, it could be your email, username, and password, or one of your social media accounts. And once somebody has access to that, they now have access to everything about you, and now they take over your accounts.
Yeah.
And now your kid is used as a part of a scam against
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
So fake emails, pop-ups, messages, your kids get tricked into revealing personal information
Mm-hmm.
or downloading bad software,
Right.
which then makes everything on the network vulnerable. We talked about keeping your network safe. Well,
Yep.
you got to keep your network safe from your kids,
Mm-hmm.
because
You
if your
do.
kids are out there doing things that don't meet the make sense test, you're now vulnerable too.
Absolutely.
Look, your kids can be used to expose your personal information very easily because they have no fear. They don't have any caution or identifying red flags. They just go out. They just don't give a damn because it's just second nature to them. They just
Yep.
don't care. And they're like, it doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter when you're giving up the identity of your parents, and now their parents get hacked because of the information the kid gave up. So
You know.
identity theft can
Yeah,
happen,
absolutely.
access to family financial accounts,
Mm-hmm.
malware, all these bad things can happen because your kids aren't educated and know how to protect themselves.
Yep. They have the parents' credit card stored on their
And
cell
they
phone.
have it
Yeah.
stored.
Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They have access to the Amazon account, which has
Yep.
credit cards stored. They have access to all this stuff. And as soon as it's compromised, and it's too late now.
Yeah.
Now the parents got to deal with the repercussion. The next thing that starts to happen with your kids, and it's happening younger and younger and younger, is the sexting. Sexting involves sharing sexually explicit images or messages through mobile devices, and it's just look. if two kids that are underage do this with each other, they can both be charged with sexual crimes
Wow.
because they're both underage. It doesn't matter. They can still both be charged. You can have two kids that are 14 years old sending each other dirty pictures to each other, and they can both be charged.
Wow. I
Now,
didn't know
now they're
that.
both identified as sexual predators or have sexual crimes charged against them that affect the rest of their lives.
Whoa.
And you don't think that that can happen, but it
Yeah.
happens.
I was totally unaware of that, Mike.
Yeah,
Man, wow.
it's so dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, it's so dangerous. Um, you know, we just like, oh my God, because now what happens is once the images start to get out, then the kids get threatened, do this, or I'm going to get those images out. Right. So now your kid is now impacted by that because now
Mhm.
they feel threatened that what they did is going to get revealed. And they'll do whatever it takes to keep that from getting revealed, which then puts them deeper, deeper, deeper down the rabbit hole.
True.
Now they become exploited. Um, you know, you got legal consequence. I'm telling you, legal data privacy. Let's talk about data privacy. You say, what's data privacy? You This is your PII, your personally identifiable information. Now we
Mhm.
already know that according to the breach, name, address, social security number is pretty much if you're alive, it's already been compromised. Okay, so just know that. But if you get the rest of the information that ties to that person, a couple more pieces, now you have a easy way to steal some identity. And imagine if you go to file your taxes and you can't because your social security number's already filed your taxes. And if you haven't had that happen, that is
And
something that's so not easy to undo.
incredible.
That could
Oh
take
man,
years to try and undo.
that just sounds like a horror
Years.
story.
It's a
Wow.
horror story.
Mm.
So we're going to jump on to the next one here is, and the reason I'm trying to get through and just identify these, this is why
How
you
man,
take
do you think?
notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to take the notes
Yep.
because I cover it fast, but I still have to cover it.
Hmm.
So you have to take the notes so you can go back over it and digest it because it's too much information to just throw it out there.
Right.
We could do this, it would take 30 or 40 sessions. But what we're going to do is we're going to give you the overview,
Hmm.
then we're going to go into a little more detail. So, online gaming risks. So, we know that that is the chats. We talked about the chatting in the game rooms,
Yep.
big time.
Hmm.
Cyberbullying is inappropriate language. Now your child has a sailor's mouth, talks dirtier than you do
Yeah.
because they do it all the time, right?
They do.
Uh huh. They have interaction with these online predators and cyberbullies in the
Mhm.
gaming environment. You think, oh, just playing a game? No, they're not.
No. And you know what's crazy? It doesn't take it but 10 seconds to find out a person's IP address.
And when you have the IP address, you know where they
Oh
live.
boy. Woo. Man.
Yep, yep.
Mm. You talking about
Once,
some real
once
crazy
you
stuff.
have the IP address, you know where they live.
Yep.
And that we can talk about that when we talk to them about VPNs,
Hmm.
virtual private networks. So social engineering. I told you your kids can be used against you, tricked into giving information about you. You're the target. You're the one with the credit card. You're the one with the money. Your kids can be tricked into giving up information about you. Okay. So you can be scammed. You can be scammed because of your kids.
Yep. That's it. Plain and simple.
The next thing you worry about with kids, I call these kids linkers. Look up the term, check it out,
Hmm.
do a little homework on what it means. Addiction to digital devices. Now, excessive use of digital devices can lead to addiction. Now, this is just like a drug addiction, okay? Now, what's that going to affect? A drug addiction affects your physical health,
Physical.
it
Hmm.
affects your mental health, your social skills, your academic performance.
Yep.
Heck, your kids can't even get a job and hold a job because they're so addicted to technology,
Hmm.
so addicted to social media, so addicted to having a phone in their hands. So your kid can't even go out and earn a living now, and they don't even have the skill set because they've been so addicted to technology or not technology, these devices their whole life that they haven't had a chance to learn a good skill.
Right.
So now your kid can't even get a job, can't hold down a job, gets a job, gets fired because the real world will fire you if you're not working. Misinformation and fake news. That's another one. You say, well, what is that? Propaganda. And if you don't know what that term means, you should probably go research what propaganda means. because the propaganda machine is legally authorized and allowed to be used against the United States public. The CIA, which is supposed to work outside of the borders of this country, are allowed to use propaganda against the people of the United States. That's authorized. And if you don't know what propaganda is, you need to go check it out. All right. So now your kids are going to be subjected to this propaganda and
Mm-hmm.
believe it to be true. Now you got a problem, right?
Right.
Now look at how many kids you see running around. They don't know anything about the conflict in the Middle East, nothing at all. They know nothing about it, but boy, they're out there fire and brimstone because they have social media that tells them they need to be outraged because of something. They don't know the whole story. They don't know half the story. They don't know a third of the story. They
Right.
only know they're supposed to be outraged. And then you have your children who are in college getting their scholarships removed and being removed from even having an academic future because of the activities they're performing. And they
Yeah.
don't know any better. And they don't know. And you ask them, why are you doing it? And they have no, they
Mhm.
can't even explain to you the most simple. They can't even identify where in the world it's happening.
That was recently in the news.
Yes, the
Yeah,
college students in Texas.
college students removed. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. I
Yeah.
saw that. Mm,
Happens all the time because what's happening? There are consequences of action. Actions
mm.
have consequences. Actions have consequences. So now, remember now, nothing goes away on the internet, right?
Right.
Okay. Digital footprint, future risks. If your child has something happen, you don't think that doesn't go away.
Oh, right. Correct. It's going to
It's there
follow.
forever.
It's there forever. Mm-hmm.
It's there forever. So now your kid is at risk forever. So keeping that down to a minimum is super important because that can affect your job prospects because employers now want to have access to your social media accounts.
Yes.
Now, if you've got this stuff that's going on, they can
Mm-hmm.
find that real easy, and now you're not going to have a job because of something stupid that went on.
Correct.
And they don't understand. Children do not understand long-term consequences of these actions. It's regret and reputational damage. They can have damage occur to the reputation. It means they can't recover from that, and they're going to try and get this job they really want, and they won't be able to get it because they have a bad reputation because of their digital footprint and what they've done in the past. Well, I'm
Mm.
not kidding. I'm not that kid anymore. You constantly hear about people getting in trouble on the net doing something 15 years ago. Now they're paying for it.
Yep. You do.
So
You hear about it all the time. Absolutely.
and know that it happens.
Mm-hmm.
So the other part you really have to think about, and here's a biggie, and we talked about it briefly about this, the protests that's going on, exposure to radicalization and extremist content.
Mm.
That stuff is so slick and smooth that your
Mm-hmm.
children get out there and get attracted to it. Now
Mm-hmm.
they think that it's their family. They
Yeah.
believe that it's their family, and now they're going to put that above anything else, and they're going to become extremists because they were attracted to that. And it's slick social media marketing these folks use.
Yep.
The extremists are not stupid. They're very, very, very smooth and slick and
Mm-hmm.
well funded.
True.
So now your children are being exposed to extremism. So now you hear these parents have a child who was just a perfectly normal child, and
Mm.
suddenly they find out that this child goes out and shoots up the school. They got radicalized, and the parents never even knew that it was happening underneath their own feet. But this is what happens. This is another danger. And so, how do you deal with those things?
You
So
hear the stories. You hear the
we
stories.
can't.
About
We
the
hear
school
the
shooting.
stories all the time. So we
Mhm.
will talk about how to address each of these areas as a parent. Tools you can use, red flags to look for, and then what to do if you do get a red flag, and how to deal with it. So we're going to talk about that. That's definitely coming up. That we're going to really need to dig in because it's going to take some effort as a parent. You can't just say this is the only thing I'm doing and I got 5 minutes at it and I'm good. This is your child's future at stake. Your digital future of your children is at stake. So you have to really be willing to invest some time, effort, and energy into that to be able to protect them even from themselves. You don't let a child drive a car until they're ready to drive a car, and then you teach them how to drive the car and you put them in the parking lot first.
Mhm.
Right? And then you teach them how to drive around cones. You teach them how to back up. So let's talk about this. what to do. Our next session, we're going to talk about some tools we can use, and we might even have to break that into pieces because some of the tools you need are going to be detailed.
Wow. So much information.
It is.
So much information.
This is a
And
huge
needed.
subject
Huge subject.
and
So
needed.
it very much so. So I don't know how many uh episodes we're gonna have for this, man, but we're gonna knock it out. We're just gonna get it done. And if there's no time constraint, we might have to meet more than twice a week because the people need this information and we need to get it to them. So that's our time for tonight, people. Man, give it another hand to Big Mike and the information that he's providing. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching the show, taking notes, and being with us as we cover this sensitive subject, protecting your children against hackers and bad actors. Episode 18. Episode 19 is coming to you on Tuesday. We'll see you then as we continue. You guys have a beautiful Sunday, a happy holiday. I'm Turbo, the CEO at Trinity Entertainment Music Group. This information is for, you already know. Yeah, that part. Yeah, have a great night and see you on Tuesday. But if yeah, we're gonna give you guys something to think about over the holiday. See you on Tuesday. Good night.